Hi everyone, it's Dee Rondinella, Technology Training Coordinator for the Stark Library with this month's Sewing Saturday. This month we're going to learn how to make a tissue and sanitizer holder. They're very simple and easy to make and only take minimal of the fabric. So let's go ahead and let's get started. What I have here is a completed sanitizer holder. And you're going to see that inside of the back of it are the tissues, which is a standard just little pack of tissues. And the front side of it houses your sanitizer. And it can be any product or any brand that you like, just as long as it fits inside of that little cubby. If you look very closely here, I've got a couple right here that are not packed. And you're going to see that it has a pouch that circles the entire way around, and it has an opening in the back that opens from the top to the bottom. You're also going to notice that I made mine in a variety of different colors. You can make them with two different kinds of fabric, or you can keep them like I'm going to do today with the same fabric for both the top and the bottom. So let's go ahead and let's get started. One of the things it took was a little bit of experimenting on getting the proper size of the fabric to fit the tissue holder and the sanitizer. What we came up with is a 7.5 across and a 5 3/4 down the back. Now this is the back part, or what is the checkered part right there. The second piece that we have is also 7.5 across, but this one's only 4 inches deep. And that is going to be the lower part, or the part that holds the sanitizer. Now I went ahead and I cut out my pieces. For the larger one, the 7.5 by 5 3/4, I need 2 pieces. 1, 2, exactly the same size. But for the bottom, I only need one. Just one single piece of fabric. So when you cut those, just think you can use a fat quarter and you can get 2 of them out of a fat quarter, or if you have something like I've got here, or just some random scraps from projects, as long as they have those dimensions, you are good to go. Now let's get started. What I have in front of me are the pieces and parts that are necessary when you're creating your tissue holder. The first part I'm going to start with is the smaller one. I'm going to lay it out because I have to do a little bit of pressing. When I do my pressing, I need to come down about 1/4 of an inch and then roll it to be another 1/4 of an inch. And then I will press it across. And what that looks like when it's completed is a folded over seam. When I'm done with that, I run a seam straight across the back side or the front side, whichever you're comfortable with. I'm going to put my seam in right now. Now I use a slightly larger stitch because it is semi-decorative when you're finished with your project. I also put it as close to the open edge as possible so that I catch all pieces and parts. Once I have that completed, I now have to create what is called a sandwich of all my fabrics. So I have my first piece of my larger one, and I'm going to lay it out on my pressing cloth here. And then I have my upper area. Now this is the one, remember, that holds the sanitizer. And I'm going to do a little snipping work here just to get rid of all those extra little threads, just to make it tidier. And then I'm going to lay it right side up on top of my fabric. So here's the upper, here's the lower. Now that third piece, in other words, the second piece of larger, I'm going to turn it down so that it is right sides together. And it's going to be nice and squared. So this is what you're going to look at. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run a seam on both sides. It's a 1/4 inch seam that you want to put in there, and it only takes a moment. I'm going to flip it over and do the next side. And make sure those stay lined up inside of there, because if they twist or shift in there, you'll see it in the end product. Looks a little odd, doesn't it? But we're getting there. The next thing you have to do is flip these right side out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach my hand inside of there and I'm going to pull it through. And what you will see when it is completed, what you're going to see when it is completed is all pieces looking at you correctly. So the front side is here. This is your sanitizer holder area. This is the back. And so if you flip it over, that's going to be where your tissues are going to be held. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to give it a good press. I like mine to be nice and crisp when I'm making my gifts. And just to let you know, this is a nice little gift, not just as maybe a stocking stuffer, but what if somebody doesn't feel good or they have the sniffles or allergies? This makes a nice little gift that you can give in a small care package. Right? So here we go. I have it ready to now fold so we create the tissue part. So I'm going to use my little ruler here. The end product, it has to be 3 inches wide. All right, so, and that's no longer 7.5, it's going to be 3 inches. So I'm going to lay it down there, and in order to do this correctly, I know for a fact that the very first fold has to be approximately 1 3/4 inches. So I'm going to fold it just right there. Now if you feel the need to, go ahead and pin it. It's up to you. But now I need it to be a solid 3 inches. So I'm going to place it at 3 inches, and knowing when I fold it over, that's going to be the final side of my tissue holder. I can press it, which I do like to do real quick so it holds its spot. And then from there, I'm going to go over to the machine and I'm going to sew the bottom and the top. So those two parts. Just a 1/4 inch seam, that's all it takes. Now, just to let you know what I'm going to do in the middle, when I come over to the part that has the opening or the gap where you're folding it over, I give that a back stitch so it stays good and sturdy. So right here, I'm going to give it a little back stitch just to help it because you're going to be stuffing tissues in there. Okay. Go to my next side, do the same thing. Back stitch it, and so it's sturdy. Go back forward, and there you go. Now, if you want to, you can serge this. If you don't have a serger and you don't like the phrase, you can use a zigzag stitch. It's entirely up to you. But I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to snip off these corners so they press over nice and neatly and lay flat. Not much, I don't want to go near my seams. And all I'm using is this simple little pair of scissors. Watching my hands, you don't want to cut yourself. And now I'm going to flip it right side out. There we go. And there we have our tissue holder. Now, in order to get our corners nice and straight, I do use a bamboo stick. And I punch out those corners. Now my bamboo stick does not have points on it. It has a rounded edge, so it makes it easier. I'm going to now give it a little press. Nice and flat. You can again use starch at this process if you want to. And if your corners aren't straight like you want them yet, just go back in and punch them back out with the bamboo stick and repress it until you're comfortable with its look. Then, as I said, as a gift, or maybe you just want it for your own purse or bag, or to give, I keep mine in my glove compartment of my car. You can now put a pack of tissues right inside. Now, I didn't take the plastic off. I like to keep mine tidy. I will place a slit in the plastic later. And I'm going to then take my sanitizer, slide it in, and there I go. I have a tissue holder, sanitize holder, so that I can take it with me in my purse, put it in my car, or give it as a gift. I want to thank you for attending today, and I hope you enjoy it. And if you have any questions, please contact me at the Stark Library. Just call and ask for Dee.